and I seemed to hear a faint cry as the man was pushed towards the wire. For the next 2 or 3 minutes, succeeding waves failed to reach him. He lay there as if exhausted, then tried to push himself up as a great comber rolled in and flattened him. When it receded, he was still alive, but there could only be one end to the game that was being played down there. I crouched in the shelter of the gorse bushes, waiting for something to happen, anything that would make it unnecessary for me to play at heroes. It came from an unexpected quarter, the fold in the cliffs on my right from which a narrow track dropped to the beach. I heard voices first, calling excitedly, then 6 men appeared and paused on the brow of the hill about 50 feet above the sea. They were tote workers, a few of the poor wretches brought over from France to labour on the island's fortifications. This lot were a road gang from the looks of them, and carried picks and shovels. There were no guards, which wasn't unusual. The island, after all, was as effective a prison in itself as could have been found anywhere. They seemed to be having an argument. Then one of them moved ahead and started to slide down the slope to the beach below. He dropped the last 10 or 15 feet into soft sand, picked himself up and approached the wire. He was a brave man, and closer to death than he perhaps knew. Another great wave rolled in, washing a second body into the minefield. There was a sudden eruption, and for a moment the sea boiled. When it drew back, I was surprised to see that the man in the yellow life jacket was still alive. But not for much longer. He needed a miracle now, and from the looks of it, it would have to be a miracle called Owen Morgan. I realized that with a kind of weary fatality as the tote worker on the beach, who had thrown himself flat on his face, got up and paused uncertainly. He knew about the mines now, and only a fool would venture into such a death trap. A fool or someone who didn't particularly care whether he lived or died. I took the Mauser with the SS bulbous silencer from the clip at the rear of my belt and slipped it into the pocket of my reefer coat. Then I took the coat off and pushed it into the crevasse at the back of the overhang under which I was sheltering. I transferred my knife to my right-hand pocket. The spring blade action meant that I could open it with one hand, which might be useful there in the water. What else was there? My identity discs. I checked that they were safe in the secret pocket of my belt. Not that they were likely to do me much good where I was going. And the black patch which covered what was left of my right eye. I almost forgot about that. It was hardly likely to remain in place in the kind of surf that was coming in, and I pulled it down around my neck on its elasticated band. In the country of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. God knows why I thought of that as I went down a narrow crevasse for 20 or 30 feet and emerged onto a shoulder of rock. The tote workers on the hillside saw me at once, but the man on the beach was back at the wire looking for a way through. "No good! Too many mines!" I shouted in French. "Leave it to me!" He turned and looked up in surprise, staring dumbly, so I gave it to him in English and German for good measure. Some little way below, a rock jutted out 30 feet or so above deep water. When I was 12, I had jumped from it to impress Simone. She had refused to speak to me for a week for the fright I had given her. It all came back so clearly as I paused there for a moment. A good morning, a fine morning to die in. I took a quick breath and jumped. It was cold as only the Channel can be with the Atlantic rolling in all the way from Newfoundland. I went deep and kicked with all my strength as the current caught me. I was wearing canvas rope-soled shoes, denim pants, and a Guernsey fisherman's sweater, and all these things I had retained by design. If you were swimming in cold waters, clothes helped to retain body heat, and so it was now. I surfaced and started to swim the 100 yards that separated me from Horseshoe. The great tidal surge that drives in through the Channel Islands raises the level of the water in the Golfe de Saint-Malo by as much as 30 feet, and I could feel the implacable force of it pushing me forwards, lifting the waves into whitecaps in a great unbroken progression to crash in across the beach. The swimming in itself was no great feat. All I had to do was stay afloat, and the tidal current did the rest. I was aware of the tote workers up on the hillside in the green fold between the cliffs, of the man on the other side of the wire, and then a great wave took me in its iron grip and carried me in what seemed like a considerable speed. I touched sand.